They called it the Max Headroom Incident, an unauthorized, haunting broadcast that hijacked Chicago television in 1987. No one has ever discovered who did it, how they did it, or why. A masked figure interrupted the signal, mumbled nonsense, and vanished without a trace. It was over in seconds, but the discomfort lingers. But what if that wasn't just a prank? For decades, science fiction has warned us softly at first, then with alarming intensity, that not all broadcasts are meant to be decoded. Across radio waves, flickering television sets, digital frequencies, and even dreams, strange transmissions have crept into our consciousness. Some are alien, some are human, some don't seem to come from anywhere at all. And yet, what's more disturbing is how often the creators themselves claim they don't remember writing it. Screenwriters who say the script came to them in a single night. Directors who admit, "I don't know where the idea came from." Films that feel less like fiction and more like received messages. This countdown isn't about technology gone rogue. It's about signals faint, persistent, and impossible to trace that have slipped into cinema like whispers from another reality. They don't just tell stories. They infect memory. They linger in silence. And sometimes, they feel like they're watching you back. These aren't just sci-fi films. These are transmissions. Let's begin. 1. Signals, 2024. Unreleased. No trailer. No release date, but some say they've already seen it. Signals is an unreleased experimental sci-fi film rumored to have been test-screened in early 2024 and immediately shelved. Leaks describe it as a silent, 74-minute piece composed entirely of static, flickering light patterns and subliminal images. There is no dialogue, no characters, but some viewers reported vivid hallucinations, false memories, and a sense of having been reprogrammed. Theories abound that it was an AI-generated film built from mass surveillance footage, that it was part of a DARPA study, that it doesn't exist at all, and those who saw it merely received the idea. What little is known suggests it was developed under the title Project Seraphim and was meant to simulate non-human cognitive transmission. Several major streaming services quietly removed placeholder listings after online speculation grew. Signals isn't a film in the traditional sense. It's a challenge. If consciousness can be shaped by image and sound, what happens when those elements are weaponized? You may not see signals, but if it exists, it already saw you. 2. The Ring, 2002. She watched the tape, then her phone rang. 7 days left. Gore Verbinski's The Ring, adapted from the Japanese Ringu, redefined the horror of cursed media for the digital age. A videotape filled with cryptic, nightmarish imagery kills its viewers unless they copy and pass it on. But underneath its ghost story lies a deeper anxiety, the idea of information as infection. The tape isn't haunted in the traditional sense. It's a signal, a cursed sequence of images and sounds, designed with precision. It doesn't require belief, just exposure. And once seen, it embeds itself. The most disturbing implication? No one knows who made it. Even the ghost, Samara, may be just another vessel. The real entity is the transmission self-replicating, viral, predatory, and the only escape is participation, spread it, or die. Behind the scenes, the production team noted frequent audio malfunctions, unexplained camera glitches, and corrupted footage. Verbinski himself said the film felt like it was always watching us back, because in The Ring, the signal doesn't want attention, it wants survival. 3. Frequency, 2000. 30 years apart, on the same frequency, a father and son start talking. The world changes. In Frequency, a New York firefighter in 1969 and his son in 1999 connect through a ham radio during an aurora borealis. At first, it's a miracle. They reconnect. They heal, but altering one event, saving the father from death, sets off ripples that reshape time, memory, and identity. What begins as a touching reunion turns into a cascading time loop thriller. Serial killers reappear, childhood memories vanish, cause and effect decouple, and yet the only tool at their disposal is the signal, an old-fashioned analog radio that shouldn't still work, let alone bend time. Director Gregory Hoblet has stated that the idea for the film came from a dream about a conversation with someone I had lost, but in real time. And some radio enthusiasts who recreated the exact model used in the film claim they've picked up recordings not in any archive. Frequency offers hope, but also a haunting message. Even the most human connections, when routed through interference, can become unpredictable transmissions. 4. Videodrome 1983. Your body adapts to what your mind consumes, even if it kills you. David Cronenberg's Videodrome is one of the most prophetic, disturbing sci-fi films ever made. A nightmarish vision of media that doesn't just influence, but rewires. Max Wren, a sleazy cable TV executive, stumbles upon a pirated broadcast. Torture, murder, no context. But the more he watches, the more his world deteriorates. Hallucinations take over. Flesh merges with machine. The broadcast isn't fiction, it's a transmission meant to reshape the viewer's perception, even their physiology. But who's sending it? Why? The film never answers directly. Because the real horror isn't the origin of the signal, it's the fact that Max accepts it. Cronenberg has said the film was inspired by late-night channel surfing, encountering stations that weren't supposed to exist. And during filming, the team used analog feedback loops that occasionally generated imagery no one could explain. Videodrome doesn't predict the future, it becomes it. Long live the new flesh. 5. Pontypool, 2008. Kill is kiss, kiss is kill, and the virus spreads with every word you speak. Pontypool is set almost entirely in a radio station during a snowstorm. A shock jock and his team begin receiving disturbing reports from callers, people attacking each other, descending into madness. But the truth is far stranger. The virus isn't airborne, it's linguistic. Certain English words, simple, common, have become infected. Speaking them triggers cognitive collapse. Understanding them seals your fate. The safe space of language becomes a minefield. The brilliance of Pontypool lies in its containment. You never leave the station. You barely see the violence. But the horror unfolds through sound, through dialogue, through a creeping awareness that comprehension itself is the enemy. Writer Tony Burgess has claimed the script came to him in a dream where he couldn't speak, but could still hear everything, and everything was wrong. The film ends ambiguously, offering no cure, because how do you unlearn meaning? When words are the disease, what's left to say? 6. Coherence, 2013. The comet passed overhead. The lights flickered. Then the world split. Coherence is a sci-fi thriller told with handheld realism and improvised dialogue, but its lo-fi style masks a deeply disturbing concept. Multiple versions of reality bleeding into each other after a cosmic event transmitted, it seems, through nothing more than household signals, a Wi-Fi router, a cell phone buzz, a power outage. 8 friends gather for dinner during a meteor shower. As the night unfolds, they begin to suspect that themselves from another version of their world may be trying to replace them. The tension builds not through monsters or violence, but through subtle shifts in detail, a glow stick of the wrong color, a note written in your own handwriting. Director James Ward Burkett shot the film in his own house, giving actors only scene prompts, not scripts. The result? Reactions that feel unscripted because they were. But more unsettling are reports from viewers who claim to experience timeline confusion after watching. One man insisted his kitchen window faced the opposite direction before he saw the movie. The signal in Coherence isn't sound or image. It's logic scrambled just enough to make you doubt your own reality. And once that doubt takes root, it doesn't go away. 7. Ghostwatch, 1992, BBC. They said it was just a drama, but the panic was real. Ghostwatch aired only once on BBC 1 October 31st, 1992. Framed as a live paranormal investigation broadcast from a haunted house in Northolt, London, the program featured real BBC personalities, unscripted interviews, and slowly escalating chaos. What viewers didn't realize until too late was that it was fiction, carefully scripted, pre-recorded, controlled, but it didn't feel that way. As the investigation unfolded, strange occurrences built up, moving shadows, inexplicable knocks, a mysterious figure glimpsed in the background, pipes, the ghost of an abusive man whose presence seemed to seep through the broadcast itself. Emergency lines flooded with terrified callers, children couldn't sleep. Some viewers claimed their own TVs started glitching during the show. One even blamed the program for a suicide. Though BBC pulled Ghostwatch from future airings, its legacy only grew. The line between audience and signal had blurred. It wasn't just a haunted house on TV, it was your house, your screen, your night. Researchers later suggested that the show unintentionally created a form of mass suggestion via broadcast, something rarely seen before. But maybe the signal wasn't just suggestive, maybe it was a little Infected. Some fiction doesn't pretend to be real. It simply waits to be believed. 8. The outer limits. The galaxy being 1,963. He reached out with math. What answered wasn't looking for a conversation. In the debut episode of The Outer Limits, a radio engineer experiments with high-frequency signals and inadvertently makes contact with an alien being. But this isn't a triumphant moment of connection, it's an accidental summoning. The creature materializes, not physically, but as a transmission shaped by thought and fear. The episode, filmed in eerie monochrome and filled with analog whirs and pulses, is less science fiction than philosophical warning. The galaxy being doesn't speak in words, it speaks in interference. It's not evil, just incompatible. The moment of contact is irreversible. What is heard can't be unheard. What makes this episode legendary is how prescient it was. It aired before SETI launched formal signal detection. The language of contact it imagined radio frequencies, waveform geometry, subconscious influence mirrors actual methods now being used. Decades later, audio engineers discovered that a low hum embedded in the episode's background, believed to be artificial, was actually a real, unknown shortwave recording. Somewhere in the static, fiction blinked. 9. White Noise, 2005. They told him to stop listening. The voices didn't agree. In White Noise, a grieving man becomes obsessed with electronic voice phenomena, ghostly messages said to be captured through static on radios and televisions. At first, it's a whisper, then it's a voice. Then, it speaks directly to him. What begins as a supernatural drama slowly distorts into a technological spiral. The deeper he dives into these signals, the more his reality fractures. Audio recordings morph into predictions. Television flickers become patterns. He doesn't just receive the messages, he starts responding. The film received lukewarm critical attention, but behind the scenes, things were less dismissible. Star Michael Keaton reportedly refused to keep a replica EVP recorder after production. Several sound engineers claimed they heard unlogged audio during post. One editor requested to have her name removed from the final mix, not for creative reasons, but for spiritual safety. White Noise is less about the afterlife than about the signal that bridges to it, and the terrifying possibility that, once it starts talking back, it never stops. 10. Broadcast Signal Intrusion, 2021. He found the tapes in an archive no one remembered. They weren't marked. They weren't meant to be seen again. Loosely inspired by the real-life max headroom signal hijacking of 1987, Broadcast Signal Intrusion follows a lonely video archivist who stumbles upon a series of cryptic pirate broadcasts, each more unsettling than the last. What starts as curiosity becomes obsession as he tries to decode their meaning and trace their origin. The film never answers the central question, who made the tapes, but it doesn't need to. The visuals, masked figures, distorted audio, unnatural movements evoke something far older than digital interference. Something ritualistic, intentional. Director Jacob Gentry stated that the film was inspired by his own experience, discovering a corrupted VHS tape in a thrift store. When played, it showed images that weren't in the movie it was labeled as. That tape is now missing. The brilliance of broadcast signal intrusion isn't in what it shows, but in how it forces the viewer to wonder if some transmissions are encoded, not for understanding, but for activation. 11. The Signal, 2007. They said it came through the airwaves. A burst of static, a hum, then the blood started. The Signal is a low-budget, 3-part film that tells a fragmented story about a transmission infecting people's minds, turning ordinary citizens into deranged killers. But what makes it exceptional is its structure. Each of its 3 segments is directed by a different filmmaker, each from a wildly different tone: horror, surreal comedy, psychological dread. What links them is the signal. It's never explained, never localized. It just is. And like madness itself, it doesn't follow logic, it simply spreads. Characters question whether the violence is real or imagined. The audience is left equally unanchored. The film was developed quickly, with the directors claiming the idea emerged from a sleepless weekend surrounded by malfunctioning electronics. Some early prints reportedly contained audio glitches that weren't part of the mix, as if the film itself was being interfered with. It's one of the few sci-fi horror films that doesn't explain its virus, because maybe the explanation is already inside you. 12. The Medium, 2021. She didn't see the spirit. She heard it through a smartphone, mid-call. in a voice that wasn't human. The Medium is a Thai faux documentary horror film that begins as a possession story, but quietly mutates into something far more insidious. The spirits aren't just haunting the village, they're adapting. They hijack devices, appear through camera feeds, even distort digital recordings. It's no longer about belief, it's about signal. Shot in a found footage format, the film uses the language of modern media text messages, live streams, auto-recorded clips to tell a story of ancestral rage bleeding into the cloud. The spiritual becomes technological, the rituals become data, and somewhere along the way, the audience forgets when the possession actually began. Director Banjong Pisanthanakun has said the film was inspired by a noise he kept hearing during an unrelated shoot, one that was never caught on tape, yet made the crew uneasy for weeks. There's horror in what we see. But the medium dares to ask, what if the scariest things are embedded in what we replay? 13. Special Bulletin 1983. There were no commercials, no disclaimers, no music cues, just a newscast about a nuclear threat in Charleston, and it felt real. Special Bulletin aired as a TV movie, but many viewers didn't realize that. Framed entirely as a live broadcast, it depicted a terrorist group demanding disarmament while holding the city hostage. What made it chilling was its authenticity. Breaking news graphics, live feeds, stammering anchors, and raw, unscripted panic. Some people reportedly fled their homes. Though a disclaimer aired at the start, most missed it, and the film never aired again on network television. Critics praised its realism, others condemned it as psychological warfare. But what remains is its legacy, a movie so convincing, it blurred fact and fiction until no one was sure which side of the screen they were on. And here's the twist. Some survivors of actual Cold War operations claim that parts of Special Bulletin matched declassified transmission scripts down to the phrasing. Was it just good research? Or did the writers tap into something they weren't supposed to find? Sometimes, fiction isn't predictive, it's just early. 14. The Vast of Night, 2019. A small-town radio station, a strange frequency, and a night that never ends. Set in 1,950 seconds, New Mexico, The Vast of Night follows a young switchboard operator and a radio DJ who intercept a mysterious signal, interrupting their regular broadcast. The hum is alien literally. As they trace its origin through old recordings and hushed eyewitnesses, the town grows eerily still. The film plays like a seance conducted through sound waves. Long takes, whispered dialogue, and constant interference build a sense that someone or something is listening back. The farther they dig, the more reality bends, until the air itself feels charged with unseen presence. Director Andrew Patterson shot the film almost entirely in darkness, evoking both intimacy and dread. The minimalist design amplifies the one element that matters most, sound. Because here, sound is proof of existence and intrusion. The Vast of Night doesn't end with revelation, but with absorption. The signal consumes everything, and the broadcast cuts to black. When the frequency fades, silence doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels occupied. 15. Ghost in the Machine, 1993. Electricity remembers, and sometimes it remembers you. In Ghost in the Machine, a serial killer's consciousness survives a fatal accident, not in his body, but in the circuitry of a computer. His mind uploads itself into the power grid, using any connected device to continue his work. Phones, microwaves, even hospital machines become weapons in his hands. The film mixes techno-horror with proto-cyberpunk ideas. The internet as a haunted space, where the dead persist as data. It's campy on the surface, yet conceptually chilling a broadcast of malevolence through current and code. What makes Ghost in the Machine haunting isn't the violence, but the implication. If personality can survive as digital noise, then every crash, every glitch, might just be a residue of someone trying to speak through the wires. Director Rachel Talalay later said she was inspired by hearing phantom voices through her modern late at night during editing. The sound engineer insisted the phone lines were clean, but what if they weren't? Some ghosts don't need houses, they just need voltage. Bonus fact: Noroi, The Curse, 2005. He recorded everything, but the curse broadcasted itself. In Noroi, The Curse, a documentary filmmaker investigates strange paranormal events linked by one recurring anomaly, a distorted audio signal that appears across radio, TV, and home video recordings. As he follows the trail, the signal begins to appear inside his own tapes. Presented as a found footage documentary, the film feels disturbingly authentic. It uses news clips, talk shows, and corrupted broadcasts to create a web of interference that grows more alive with every scene. Unlike Western horror, Noroi doesn't chase jump scares. It builds an ecosystem of unease, a slow realization that the signal isn't haunting anyone, it's evolving through them. Director Koji Shiraishi constructed the film from dozens of faux broadcasts, designed to blur fiction and reality. Japanese audiences at the time were divided. Some believed the footage was genuine. Others claimed they had seen parts of the broadcast years before the film's release. By the time the documentary ends, both the filmmaker and the audience have become receivers. The screen flickers, the static breathes, and the broadcast continues without the camera. Because some transmissions don't fade to black. They just wait for the next viewer. Not every signal needs a sender, and not every viewer walks away the same. These films weren't just stories, they were warnings, echoes, maybe even invitations. If a transmission slipped through fiction into something real, would you even notice? Which of these signals stayed with you? Or more importantly, which one felt like it was meant for you? Tell us in the comments below.